Okay, thanks everyone. So this session will be a bit different. You're getting blank, or in some cases, sheets of paper with grids on in front of you. That is because you're going to be doing stuff. And we're now going to be giving you pens. We had a panic this morning and thought, AI people are not going to have their own pens. So pens are being provided. And in a moment, we'll explain what's going to happen with that. And what this session is about is getting us to think collectively, start some early stage ideas about trustworthiness features. So a feature in a product is something which adds value to it. And the focus of this session will be starting thinking as groups about what might make AI-based products more trustworthy, not just to experts, but to people that are quite new to AI and don't really understand it. So the way we're going to do it is we're going to give you some context to start with. I'm going to try and explain what we mean by trustworthiness features. Then our fantastic team here are going to help us understand what digital inclusion is, because that's a hugely important part of work that we do and is such an important area, not just in connection with technologies like AI, but in terms of digital as well. But what we're aiming to do in this session is you'll be spending quite a bit of time generating ideas yourselves and then also talking as a table before we come back to share some reflections. So be ready to scribble. Now, maybe before we get into that, if you've got a sheet of paper in front of you that's blank and you're wondering, how can I fit 8 things on it? I suggest you fold it a couple of times, and that will give you, by magic, 8 squares. So if you like to fidget with your paper while you're getting ready, and you don't have 8 lines marked, you can fold it up and make your own little 4x2 grid. Right. Context then, what is a trustworthiness feature? So a trustworthiness feature, it's kind of a term that we kind of made up, but what we mean when we say trustworthiness feature is a piece of technology that tells you that something bad is happening or that you run up against a limitation of the technology. And here's some examples on a slide. That is very small, but it says your connection is not private. It's not a very accessible way of expressing lack of trust, but it's an example of a trustworthiness feature. Readers added context that they thought people might want to know. You've probably seen that before if you're on that popular site that used to be called Twitter. If you're a fan of reading Wikipedia, anybody a fan of reading Wikipedia? You might occasionally see something like the top right there, which is giving you a few cautions and saying this page, maybe it's not been maintained very well, maybe it's not got any cited sources, and so on and so forth. Another example from a newspaper, I mean no political point by this, but the headline is Blair's Crushing Triumph, and on the newspaper page it's got a little caution that says, by the way, this article is 26 years old or 25 years old. Can't even read it, I'm so old. But it's an example where that layer of context is helping you understand that information and say, you know what, this didn't happen yesterday. That's quite an important feature. My final example is down the bottom, and it's incredibly tiny, so I'm sure nobody can read it, but it's Google results. And quite often if you do a Google search, you'll see the number of results returned. And one on the left has about 190 odd, and the one on the right has 22 billion. How many notes? Yeah, Tom's nodding, it must be billions. So that's just examples of you get these little pieces of context and they help you make judgments about, is this something I can rely on? So without further ado, we've done the introduction. We're now going to go to context about why digital needs to work for everyone, and then we're going to get straight into the activity. So I'll not take up any more time, but pass the mic across. We'll get that context, and then we'll get you going in the activity together. So thank you.
Thank you. Hello, is that working? No, it is. So as part of the work that we all do as part of SCBO, and also Peter, we do a lot with what we term digital inclusion, which is essentially about being able to engage as you need to and as you want to with the online world, including AI tools and everything else that goes along with being online. So we generally think of 5 key areas for that. So motivation, devices, connectivity, skills and confidence, and inclusive design. And when you think about people who have fewer digital skills or who face barriers to getting online, they're missing those foundations that underpin all of our daily lives at this point, let's be honest. So someone who is digitally excluded especially in terms of AI, needs to understand how being connected to this or being connected to these apps and tools and choices might be of interest or benefit to them, and then have the actual skills and confidence to go ahead and look at them. There are a lot of people out there who will think, AI, I want to go nowhere near that. I'm going to stick with human stupidity rather than artificial intelligence. So the other thing that we talk about as well is foundation and essential digital skills. So the foundation skills are your basic, this is how you turn this on, this is how you connect to something. But the essential digital skills are the ones that everyone needs to essentially thrive, if you will, in the digital world. So there's communicating, transacting, handling information and content, problem solving, and sort of running through all of those is being safe and legal and confident online with what you're using. But 10% of adults in the UK as a whole don't have good digital skills, and that's about 430,000 people in Scotland. And then if you think of 27% of adults having really, really low digital skills, having some but not many, that's pretty much 1 in 4 people in Scotland. So when you're designing and when you're using AI tools and features, you have to think about whether or not someone who is new to this stuff or has had barriers getting there before, how they're going to react to whatever it is you're trying to do. There might be a huge number of potential users or active users who don't have all the skills that we might assume that they have, especially because I know that only one of us here is an AI expert, but all of us are at least au fait with the concept. And a lot of people might not have that motivation either. And for just a little bit more context, I will then pass over to Darren. Sorry.
I'll stand up just so you can sort of see me because I'm a bit small. The reason for why digital inclusion is so important is for things like this. So we take out our phones and we expect the internet to operate and be there, and for all the kind of day-to-day functions of our life, and we all take it for granted. But as Catherine was saying, there's large swathes of the population within the UK that do not have that luxury, that thing that we just take for granted. And when you start to put in AI on top of that, you start to see how that disparity and that gap is going to get wider and wider. So it's really important that all of us in here, while we do this exercise, think about those people who are digitally excluded, who experience digital poverty, and how can we involve them in this process. It's very apt because one of the guys at the very back here called Mark, who I'm working with at the Glasgow University, we're looking at doing how do public services for minorities when it comes to being digitalised, because all of us see that now. More and more services are digital first. Housing associations, local authorities, banks, everything. And it's great for all of us for the sake of convenience who can access these things, but for those within the population of the UK that can't, it becomes more and more of a gap and a widening issue. That's something that we have to address. AI is only going to exacerbate that, or it may help as long as we design it properly. Okay, I'll pass on to you, Peter.
Thank you very much, Dan. My topic is has including diverse life experience and views improved digital products. Yeah, inclusive design plays a very big role in enhancing digital products. Just by the way, digital products and tools. When I was younger, I served in a print shop as a joiner, and tools to me were a hammer, a saw and a chisel. And I went into building management, my tools were a laser beam and a theodolite. But now tools encompasses everything technological. Right, it's got to be accessible to everybody. Break down the barrier, focusing and break down the barriers for users with disabilities, such as hearing, motor, vision, speech, and cognition impairments. It ensures that features and content can be accessed regardless of these disabilities. Talk about digitally excluded. Some people want to be digitally excluded. Other ones is referred through poverty, rural areas, bad signals, things like that. We've got to try and bring them on board. Inclusive design, on the other hand, goes beyond accessibility. Design resonates with a diverse range of users in the digital products it serves. Why is inclusive design important? Well, it's got to be user-centric. Inclusive design encourages designers to emphasise with different individuals and experiences. You've actually got to talk to the stakeholders, the people that are using the products, get their views on what they need, how it's going to be used, how it's going to be accessible. I mean, I've seen websites been designed for organisations. Design a website, hand it to them and say, there you go. Go, no, that's not what we want. You didn't speak to us about anything like that. So that's why it's very important to speak to the end users of these products. This will end up with a much better user experience when digital experiences are designed inclusively. They become accessible to everybody, regardless of abilities, language, or cultural background. In summary, inclusive design acknowledges the richness of human experience and ensures the digital products cater for a wide variety of backgrounds. By embracing diversity, we create more meaningful and effective solutions for everyone. Just like to say, there's a collaboration between the Scottish Government and the Health and Social Care Alliance. We've got what they call the Digital Citizens Panel, which promotes use of digital products. And I'm a member of the Digital Citizens Panel, and we embrace digital, obviously. And as an older person, I only started training digitally, 10, 20 years ago. And I thoroughly enjoy it, but there's a lot of people my age, they're not interested, and they're scared stuff from it. If I get time to tell you a daffy story about ChatGPT. I started using it. My wife now, we booked down as a concert in Paisley. No, it was an opera in Paisley Town Hall, Macbeth. Got tickets for that, and I thought, wee place across the road, go for something to eat. Booked online, no problem. Wife phoned up. We know this place well. She says, can we get a low table? My husband's disabled. She says, well, I'm sorry, we've got a wedding on that night. Your booking's cancelled. But I kept getting emails welcoming you to the place, looking forward to meeting you. And we looked in the place on the way to Town Hall, and it was absolutely packed out. So I thought, I'm writing a letter of complaint. But being in construction management and working with contractors who didn't turn up, didn't do his job properly, I'm very, very good at writing poison letters to people. So I thought, I'm going to write a complaint letter here. And I thought, no, wait a minute. I'll get sued here for what I say. So I thought, ChatGPT, make it nice. I read that letter, it brought tears to my eyes. It was so nice. I sent it to them. They invited me down to talk to them. They gave me a £30 voucher, and that would never have happened without ChatGPT. So that's an example of using technology. Right, thanks very much.
Thank you. That was fantastic to get that kind of bigger view of digital inclusion. We wanted to make that point really clear because I think it's so easy with technology to think everybody's a bit like you and design for your own experience. But what we're trying to get you to do is reflect and think more widely today. So the way we're going to do that is we've got 3 scenarios. What we're trying to do here is generate empathy. So what we're not going to do is walk out the door here and say, we've solved user experience for AI. We're not going to do something which will get built necessarily. But what we're going to do is do an exercise called wild 8s. And wild 8s is what some people call crazy 8s, but wild is a more appropriate term, I think, where you just sit for 8 minutes. You've got 8 little squares in your paper. They're actually rectangles, apologies. You've got 8 areas you can scribble in, and you generate some ideas. So I think one thing that inspired me this morning is when we were seeing what the Children's Parliament was doing, they're bringing their imagination and their empathy to solutions. They're not there necessarily thinking about it in a very intellectual or kind of, trying to think of the right word, in a very sort of abstract way. They're just engaging with it in an imaginative way. So what we'd like you to do is, given our slightly vague pitch of think about trustworthiness features, get scribbling. So we're going to dish out some scenarios. I'm going to show them on screen first. I'll read them out as well. Here's somebody saying, I think AI is great. I use those tools for everything I can, even work stuff. It's great to be able to ask questions and be answered so easily. So this person is relatively enthusiastic. These will come out in text as well, so you don't need to worry about scribbling notes if you don't want to do that. I want to use AI to review some casework, but I'm worried about data protection, so I don't know if I should. The last person is saying, I don't trust things if I don't see the process and how it gets to a result. I don't think I'll ever use AI. So these 3 scenarios, they're not exhaustive. They're just to give you a bit of a way into what you might start scribbling. And the idea is thinking about these people and the kind of mindset and context they've got. what kind of things might happen in an AI product to help them make good decisions about whether to use it or not. So what might they be seeing on their screen in an app? It might be something that pops up. It might be some context they see. What's going to help this person have a good, well-informed relationship with AI? So we're now going to dish out the bits of text. You've all got pens, hopefully. If you've got an SCVO pen, it may have been in a cupboard for a while, so it might need a little scribble to get it going, but I can assure you that you will be able to get going. So it's 17 minutes past 2 now, so I think at about 25 past 2, I'm going to say time's up. This first stage is just take your 8 minutes on your own, and then we're going to give you about 5 minutes talking to somebody next to you, and then we'll start a bit more of a table discussion, then we'll bring some ideas back from the table. So 8 minutes, 3 scenarios. You don't have to do them all. Maybe choose one that speaks most to you, and just generate some ideas about what somebody might see on screen if they were having a good, effective relationship with an AI product. Right. Thanks, everyone. I hope that was a good bit of time. I got the feeling a lot of people are already starting to chat, which is fantastic. So that must mean you've all got 8 brilliant ideas. What we're going to do next is what we're going to try and do is bring the wildness back into the room, those wild 8s. So we're going to do that in a couple of stages. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to give you 5 minutes, and the room will probably get quite noisy as we do this. We're going to give you 5 minutes to speak to the person next to you, and your goal is to, through that conversation, decide on 2 ideas you're going to take to the rest of your table. So 5 minutes as pairs. When I say go, not just yet, don't start chatting too much. 5 minutes, and you're going to select 2 ideas. It might be it's 1 idea each. You might find that you're actually, one of you's got 2 and one of you's actually okay with those 2. But you're going to get, between the 2 of you, pick 2 from you should have potentially 16 ideas each as a pair, beg your pardon. Trying to add up. You're going to take your top 2, in 5 minutes save them, and then I'm going to prompt you all to do the next stage as a table, and then when we've done that, we'll go around the table. So 5 minutes, and I've got a fantastic timer here, which I think the crew are going to set for 5 minutes for me. Okay, 5 minutes. Okay, right. I am sorry to stop the flow, but we do need to move to the next stage. Can I just, with a wave of hands, are you feeling like in your pairs you're getting to broad agreement on your 2 to take to the rest of the table? So? Right, we're going to do it anyway, so it's a good example of meaningful consultation. So, if you can all listen for a wee second while I explain the next stage. This is the stage where each pair takes their 2 ideas to the whole table. And then what we want from the next 5 minutes is 2 ideas per table. So this might, can you get that done in 5 minutes? I'm looking at you, I think you can do it. You look like very collaborative people. Right, so it's 5 minutes as a table. You're going to get to your top 2 ideas, and then we're going to start to go around and talk to the tables. And what we'll be doing is hearing from each table about their top 2 selected ideas. We want to make sure we get all the way around the room and make sure nobody's left out. And then we hope there'll be a bit of time for further questions and discussion. But this next 5 minutes is where each pair is pitching for their top 2 or saying, yes, I'm really enthusiastic about other ideas, because that's also fine. If you see an idea and think, I wish I'd thought of that, guess what? Your table did, so you can make it one of your top 2. So another 5 minutes, please. Can you perfect? They're super on it. So 5 minutes, go. Okay, right. You have reached the end of your 5 minutes, but I have one question for you, if you're all hearing me okay. The one thing I want to check is, has every pair around your table had a chance to share their top 2? No. Right, I'm going to give you 2 minutes, and you can only do one thing in that 2 minutes, and that one thing is make sure any unheard pairs have had their say. So it's your 2 minute extension time. Make sure the last pairs have shared their top 2 ideas. Okay. Have all the pairs said their piece? All right. And are you feeling relatively settled in your top two? This is probably, we're shaking heads. So I'm looking across, it looks like this table are a bit less sure, so what we'll do is we'll start this way. And without all talking at once, what we'll do now is I think Catherine is going to go around and she'll effectively MC, so find somebody at your table who's willing to report back and she will invite contributions.
I will. I'll come round like a harbinger. Right. If I start over here, do we have someone that would like to tell me the top two? And by extension, everyone else. Have this microphone.
Wasn't even one of the ideas that we came up on this side, so anyone else feel free to jump in. Top action, top number one idea was prompt. So based on the user behaviour, the data that's been inputted, you could then put a source of friction in for the customer that sort of says, we've identified there may be a policy number that's been inputted in here, or there may be personal identifiers put in here. Go back and review. If you're then comfortable, then submit, sort of thing. So making sure that from, I think it was the second point, is about data protection. You're building in safeguarding mechanisms that allow you to sort of check and challenge so that they can still use it to enhance content or whatever it may be, whatever the outcome may be, but having safeguarding mechanisms in place. Have we thought of a second idea? Come back for the second idea. What? Blockers. Yep.
So the other thing we had was blockers. So, for example, if you're, it's a bit similar to yours, we had prompts in a general sense of like various different things: scope, hints and tips, warnings, transparency notice, and then we thought about blockers as a more a cut-off tool to say you can't do this. This activity would be dangerous. You know, it's stopping you from doing something that might represent a threat to yourself or to others. And that might also be in the form of like even an age verification access to the tool to say you can't use this because you're too young. So we had that as a second potential protection.
Thank you. Right. Who would like to tell me about two ideas from here? Like a sadistic school teacher, I will pick someone. Go on. Thank you.
It's the right way up for me. So we thought of a couple. The first was around how does the AI work and the processes. So we thought just like a video explainer on how that particular system works. And then around the data protection, we thought of some other explainer of how the system is compliant with regulation. And we were discussing at the end whether you actually get an ethical hacker to break into your system or try to, and then produce the report like an independent.
It's like pen testing. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I'm just wiggling around everyone very annoyingly. Someone's been voluntold. Excellent.
Okay. So this solution was a idea for a build onto the accessibility plugin options that you have on your profile. So it's a universal solution rather than situational based. And it's the option to set your preferences regarding risks and features of AI before you arrive in that situation. So to build your profile in a way that suits your needs. So I use the example for myself as a person with neurodiversity, that when it comes to decision making and information, quite often sites put you on the spot to kind of make an immediate decision to choose or not choose. And so one of the things that I have in my accessibility profile is a decision delay. So things like that, an enhanced profiling feature that includes specific tailoring for the risks and decisions that you might encounter in a day-to-day engagement with AI as you roam around the internet.
Do we have another one? Oh, thank you.
I think the one for ours is kind of on the data protection as well, and similar to what yourselves have said. It would be like an internal AI system where you can update like a report or something, and then it will ask you questions like, who's this report going to? And then after it will give you a kind of score for your data protection, and it will maybe suggest areas of redaction if it's going like external to your organisation and things. And it will also maybe give you a bit of guidance on the individual things as to why they don't comply with the data protection legislations and things, so that you're learning and developing as well. So maybe the next time you put that report in, you don't have to do that and you can do the redactions yourself. So that was kind of what we...
Thank you. Okay, do we have someone here who's willing to talk? No one chooses this.
Right. So one of the ideas we had is about specifically for scenario 3 where people don't trust the AI system, then statement would be click here to see who has access to your data for AI. So that and it also placed the onus on the service provider or the platform or the company to actually show where that data is potentially goes, and where so people can see, and including all the way up to sort of generative AI and large language models that's just scraping stuff from the internet and stuff. So if that it should be the company or service provider tell you where this data can potentially go, who they're selling it to, as well. So a bit of a map. So we have a second idea from this corner or this.
Yeah, our second idea was around the second scenario with the sensitive data. And it was kind of like an add-on tool type thing, where it can detect, like in a document or like a text piece, which are the sensitive information, and it can tell you like you need to remove that or do it for you and obscure it, so you don't have to worry about that. So, yeah.
Does anyone want to speak from the back here? Just checking. No? You get out of it because you didn't have a table in front of you. Call that fair. I'm still coming back over there. Right, over here. Who would like to speak? Please do.
All right, so we also had the AI sense checker idea about checking your data, and are you sure you want to input that? So I'm not going to repeat it. We did have two other ideas that we discussed as well. One was a simplified explain how or give us some information as to how you've reached this conclusion for a non-technical experts, explain some really broad steps that you took or some sources that you used to understand this. I'm going to pass over to this section to make sure I've represented it.
No, that was exactly.
Okay, no, that was fine. And the other one we had, can I pass you guys the mic, was about making AI more accessible and have a better user interfaces.
Thanks. Yeah, sorry, it's a bit basic. So it was just basically making sure the functionality was really easy to use, maybe having the icons big and colourful, large text, just interesting, and I suppose less kind of off-putting or kind of frightening. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Grace. No? Yeah. Sorry, that's about it. Sorry, that's not particularly rocket science, is it?
Thank you. You guys did give me two, didn't you? You did. I confused myself. Thank you. Okay, now... Oh.
We've got a solo pair. Did you join with that table, or are you working as a mini unit? Okay, there's nothing you're sitting on and thinking, I'd really like to say that. Okay. You're probably thinking there, you had loads of other ideas that didn't make the top two. It always feels a bit harsh to do that. But I hope that's been a useful discussion. Maybe before we do the final wrap-up, can I just get a show of hands? Is anybody working in digital product development? So anybody in a professional setting where you're doing stuff like this? Okay, a sort of yes. I hope you find that useful as well. I think our goal for the session was two things. So one was folk in that space who are doing that stuff professionally, to give them that context and prompt about the wider issues. But also the thing we'd want to emphasize is there isn't a unified user experience for AI yet. If you go and use these tools, it's clear it's very early days. Most of them just have a big health warning down the bottom saying, might be wrong. And that, as you'll imagine, is a very crude, feature that's not really doing the job. So what we're doing in this time, and I think we've done it very well, is get ideas about, what might the future look like? Because we heard that this morning about there's not just one future in front of us, there's a multitude. And if we can bring our context, so the thing we want to emphasize is you might not feel like a digital expert, but you've got lots of life expertise and lived experience, and bringing that to the surface will make AI develop in a more responsible way. So thanks for being willing to do that reflection activity together. We hope you all found it useful and entertaining. Keep the conversations going. I'm going to be nice to the AI Alliance and finish a minute or two ahead of our time, because I know they're probably looking at their watches. So thanks very much for all your participation. I hope it was useful and interesting, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. So thanks again. And also thank you very much to Darren and Peter and Catherine for helping us through this activity as well. So thanks very much.